I had a few people talk to me last week about side dishes and things that go good with these, and someone had suggested pasta primavera, since it's basically a main dish with the vegetables already put inside of it. So I thought I could try that out since it's a decently straightforward one, especially because this one is a lot cheaper than some of the other dishes I made. Our total here is only $24.39 for all of this, and it makes a good volume. It's got a lot of vegetables in it. This recipe also varies a lot depending on what kind you want. Like there's creamy versions, there's meat sauce versions, which mine is a sauce version, so I wanted to try that out. One thing to note here, the recipe I chose decided to cook the vegetables here, the fresh ones, in coconut oil instead of regular oil. The problem with that is this little jar is like $6 by itself. So I bought that just to follow the recipe, but if you want this to be even cheaper than $24, you can just skip this completely and not spend $6 for a jar of coconut oil. I'm also adding on to this one a little bit because it only calls for the onion and the onion and zucchini, but one of the other recipes I was looking at had bell peppers and some other fresh vegetables. So you can see here I've got these 2 variety bags of frozen vegetables that are already cut up, so I don't have to cut those. Makes it a little bit easier. So the first thing I need to do here actually is cut up our vegetables. So I'll go ahead and get that taken care of. So of course our first step is to cook up our veggies a little bit first. I would have liked to cook up the frozen ones with this too, but that's a little bit too much of a hassle, so I'll only do the fresh ones. I've got the pepper, zucchini, and half the onion cut up in here. I have a bowl with the other half of the onion just in case I decide to put that in too. So first things first, we will put in our coconut oil. Of course it says use 1 tablespoon, but once again, we are just cooking the vegetables in this, so we don't really have to measure it. Oh God, I think that's a little too much, but coconut oil is weird. Why is it solid? That's enough for now. We'll let that melt down, and then we'll throw our vegetables in. And here we go. So at this point, since they're cooked pretty good, I'm gonna go ahead and put the tomatoes in also. Ow. So I want those cooked a little bit too to get a bit of the water out. We're going to add the garlic too. We got 3 cloves here that we want to add in. I'm putting the garlic in later, even though the recipe says to put it in first, because the garlic likes to burn a little bit faster than the other stuff, so I didn't want to put it in too soon. So now we'll just kind of cook this through a little bit more. So this is cooked pretty good now. I'm going to take it off the flame and then put it into a separate bowl and drain out the oil, because as you saw in the beginning, I put in a little too much coconut oil. I don't want to keep that in there because that'll just make the whole dish a little oily. So also the vegetables are pretty full in there, and I need to cook the meat next. So if I put them in together, it'll take longer to cook the meat and it'll just make a mess because it'll overflow. So I'm gonna go ahead and empty this and then put the meat in. Then we just throw in our ground turkey. And then we do the usual. So the turkey's done. Now we can just put everything together and leave it alone for a few hours. So the first step is to line the bottom with the pasta and meat sauce. Of course, I didn't mix this in with the meat, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of this in to line the bottom because that's a good idea. So the instructions say to put this in layers, but That's kind of weird, so I'm just gonna throw it all in and then mix it up so it's evenly dispersed. That should help it cook a little better than having it in layers. So you can see I got the whole grain pasta. That's an option. It's a little better than the regular pasta. The actual recipe calls for gluten-free. I couldn't find any gluten-free, but those would be good too if you do find some. It's up to you. So now I'll just figure out how to mix all this together. Okay, that was pretty annoying. That's probably why they wanted it to be in layers. All right, so the only thing we need to do now is put it on for about 3 hours on low. I don't think these have 3 hours as an option, so I'm just putting it on 8 and then I'll set myself a timer. So I will see you soon. So here is our final product. Try and get a good angle in here. You can see we got lots of pasta going on. Ooh, it smells really good. I gotta stir it a little more because it's kind of still a little bit dry at the top because the pasta absorbed all the water. So let me go ahead and do that. And here we are. Of course, there isn't much to this presentation because all it is pasta with some veggies. But before I forget, our last step is, of course, adding in our cheese mix. Cheese. I didn't want to just dump that on the entire pot because that's a waste since I'm eating it all myself. So why would I do that and then use all the cheese at once? So that covers it for this. I hope you enjoyed watching and thanks for joining me.